Hello, my name is Becky.
And I'm Randy.
And this channel is called 80s Foods versus Modern Tastes. And it started because one day we were talking about some of the foods and the recipes we remember our parents making for us back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, it was really interesting to hear some of her experiences and then compare them to mine. And we realized that we had quite a different upbringing when it came to food, and a lot of her food sounded rather disgusting to me, and I think vice versa as well for her.
Yeah, some of the ones you talked about sounded gross to me too. So we decided to make some of them and see if they are as good or gross as we remembered. On this episode, we are making festive pistachio pudding. So, festive pistachio pudding is something I remember my mom making a lot at Christmas, especially, sometimes Thanksgiving, sometimes Easter, but it kind of had like a red and green color theme. So yeah, definitely winter holiday food. What are your thoughts about what this is going to be like?
Well, this is not something I associate with my childhood at all. I do remember my grandma made, or I guess technically probably still makes, something that's green, and I want to say it's more jello based. Like, I don't know if it was lime, I don't know if it was pistachio, and I think it had like coconut flakes in it, and they are not my favorite. So I don't have high hopes for it.
Okay, well, let's get started and see what we think after we get it made. So the first ingredient is 1 package of Jello pistachio pudding. Another ingredient is a can of crushed pineapple. You use 1 container of Cool Whip. Maraschino cherries, you can kind of just use them for garnish, so it's not going to be the full container, but it might be like 10 to 15 cherries. And again, pistachios, they're for garnish, so we bought a whole package, but we're just going to be using some to crush on top. The first step is to shell some pistachios, and Jeff is going to help me with that while I get ready to start putting the other ingredients together. The first item in the bowl is the Cool Whip. The next ingredient to go in is the pistachio pudding mix.
And while incorporating the pistachio pudding mix into the Cool Whip, it's really important to try to fold it in so that you don't lose any of the air that is already in the Cool Whip, because that's the whole idea behind this, is to make it light and fluffy.
Because if you just go all out stirring, you'll make it kind of lose some of its volume.
Yeah, you're going to stir a lot of the air that's trapped in that Cool Whip out.
The next ingredient is the canned pineapple. You don't have to drain it, you just open it up and dump it in, stir until it's incorporated, again gently so that you don't lose the volume from the Cool Whip. We decided to do an initial taste test, even though we knew it would have to go in the fridge to chill for a while.
This is pretty unusual. Tastes a little bit different than I thought it would. To be honest, it doesn't taste horrible. It is a little bit lacking.
Yeah, the texture is fine. I mean, I like pudding, but having all that crushed pineapple means it's like you're not quite expecting that texture in the pudding and in the Cool Whip. So it's creamy, but then it has this like crunchy fruit in it.
Yeah, it's definitely a little strange. I'm interested in seeing how it kind of turns out tomorrow.
Next, the instructions call for chilling it in the fridge for a couple of hours up to overnight. The next task that needed to be done was chopping the maraschino cherries for the garnish that goes on top. It was recommended to do that on a paper towel to absorb some of the red cherry juice so that it didn't leach into the green pudding, which I realize isn't showing up as very green on this camera, but it would look a little worse if the red was streaking into the green. So we just spooned out some of the cherries. Some of them were already a little bit broken, but the ones that were intact we just cut in half to sprinkle on top. After the cherries go on, it's time for the pistachio garnish, and whole pistachios are pretty small already, so the amount you crush them is really just up to your personal preference for aesthetics. How artistic do you want your presentation to be of this amazing dessert? So I just used a potato masher to just press down on them gently and break them into a little bit smaller chunks, not super small. All right, so it's the moment of truth. Time to taste it.
It is surprisingly good. Now, I don't love it. It's pretty bland to me. There's just not a lot going on. But there's nothing offensive about it. There's nothing I dislike about it. But the thing that I'm kind of hung up on is that if I'm going to eat this for the holidays, where there's going to be, lots of treats and cookies and pies.
Yeah,
or
other special things that you don't normally have.
Exactly. I don't think I want to waste my stomach space on this kind of bland, benign dessert when I could go and have a piece of pumpkin pie, or I could get a piece of pecan pie, or, pick
Right.
whatever your favorite treat is.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. Initially, I thought the pineapple, chunky pineapple or crushed pineapple texture in the creamy pudding and Cool Whip would be weird, but it was okay. But now that it has pistachios on it for a little extra crunch, the texture is actually a lot better. But you're right, it is kind of bland, nothing special. And it's a lot of processed foods, like the, maraschino cherries are very processed. Cool Whip, I don't really even know what that is. And pistachio pudding mix, I mean, a lot of it is, the pineapple is natural, but it probably has a lot of sugar. And then I think crushing up the pistachios themselves is probably the most quote unquote homemade or natural part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it doesn't taste bad. It's just, not as exciting as all the other foods that are featured.
Yeah, it's the pineapple texture does get to me a little bit, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be. It kind of, once it firmed up, it matches just a little bit better than I thought it would.
Yeah, so probably never need to make it again, but I'm glad we tried it out. It definitely brought back memories. And our pupper likes it, so really, what else matters? That's the end of this episode of 80s Foods versus Modern Tastes. Thanks for watching.